Good morning, everyone. How is it going today? Welcome to this episode in my channel, Alejandro, and where we talk about programming, computer science, and data science. In today's episode, we're going to be building this multi-step form. As you can see, it works. It has multiple pages, multiple steps, and you can toggle between them. And it also has a progress bar. Okay. For this project, we will be working with vanilla JavaScript, and we're going to be using the object-oriented programming paradigm. And we're also going to be working with vanilla JavaScript, which means that we will not be working with any frameworks such as Angular or React.js, etc. All right, so we're not going to go very deep into the software design because we're basically just going to build one class for this one. But hopefully it'll be very clear and it will show you how to use classes in JavaScript and how to organize your code a little bit more neatly. All right. So we will be starting with the structure of the HTML, etc. Then we're going to actually style it so that it looks like this. And then in the end, we're going to get into the JavaScript. Okay. So without further ado, let's get right into it. There we go. So we're going to be working with Code Sandbox because it's very useful for front-end projects. As you can see, I'm going to be starting with a template that has Sass already configured, which means that I'm going to be able to use Sass inside my styles.scss file right here. This file, as you can see, it's imported in my app.js and it is loaded inside my HTML right here, right before the closing of the body tag. There you go. And we can start actually coding right here. We can say, for example, we can start adding just an H1 and say hello world, like that. And if we save, you can see that it is shown right here. We can also test that this part right here, the CSS is working. So we can add a background color red just to test, and it seems to be working correctly. There you go. I'm not going to be using this anyways. And the app.js as well, since it's included in the end of the of my file, it should work correctly if I console log something right here. Let's say hello world 2. All right, and right here you can see that it does show hello world. Okay, so there you go. That's how it works. That's how the template's organized. So now we can actually get right into it. Okay, so first of all, as you can see, it's already configured to have very basic CSS standardization. But right here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with the structure. Okay. Since this is only going to be the form, we're not going to add anything more than a form wrapper inside the body. And we're going to do it with a class. And the class is going to be called form wrapper, like that. There you go. And inside it, we're going to add the actual div of the form, which is going to be we're going to add it an ID. I mean, if you don't know how I'm building this code with classes and IDs, just with this kind of code, multi-step form, and then just add a dot. This is emit, okay? And this pretty much is a faster way to generate divs with classes and IDs, etc. So the class for this one's going to be form. And then there you have it. All right, so right here, let's figure out the structure for this one. We're gonna start with a form header like this. And then underneath, we're gonna add a form body like that. Okay, let's start with the header. Okay, as you see right here, we have our header with a title and we have a progress bar, which we're going to build a little bit later in the tutorial. But first of all, let's just add a very quick H1 saying multi-step form. There you go. Now for the body. The body is going to be divided into several pages, with which we're going to toggle an active class to show them or not to show them, depending on if it's the active class that we want to show or not. So first of all, inside the body, I'm just going to create a form page. Okay, so form page like that. There you go. And inside that form page, what I'm going to do, I am going to add just three pretty basic inputs. Okay, so input is going to be type text, of course, and I'm just going to add a very quick placeholder. I'm going to call it name like that. There you go. And then I create 3 more of this. There you go. Then for this one, I'm going to add a last name placeholder. And for this one, I'm just going to add email like that. There you go. Then underneath, we're going to add our buttons, and I'm going to add a div to wrap them all together. I'm going to say form buttons like this. Up, not like that. Buttons like this. There you go. And inside that one, I'm just going to create, first I'm going to create, let's say, a couple of buttons. I mean, I know this is the first page, but I'm just going to show you how it would look with 2 buttons, okay? So I'm going to add 1 button right here, and it's going to have a class of btn form. As you can see, we're not actually dealing with pre-made CSS frameworks. We're going to be just styling it ourselves, which, I mean, hopefully it will be educational. We're going to call this button form and button previous. And we're going to say previous for previous page. And then we're going to do the same, but this one, previous. This one's going to be next. And this one's going to read next right there. So we have the basic structure for our form, as we can see. I mean, later in the tutorial, we're going to add more form pages. So like, for example, this one right here, we will have another one right here. There's going to be another form page, and they're going to have some data attributes to actually be able to tell between them and to show the active one. But we're going to deal with that in a moment. Okay. So for the moment, this is looking correctly. Now we're going to go to styles.sass. And first of all, let's just style a little bit the background because we want it to be something bluey. So let's do that first. Body of everything. We're the same. Which font family are we using? We're gonna leave that font family. That one looks pretty good. And we're gonna say that the height of the body is going to be 100 VH, which means the entire screen. We're gonna say that the background color is going to be a color that I have right here. There you go. This color, I like it. It's kind of a pretty nice blue. What else? We're gonna center everything. So it's gonna say display flex, justify content center, underlying item center as well. There you go. So everything is centered, and we also want everything to be white. I mean the color, right? The color of the text. There you go. So that's body. Now we're gonna have to actually start dealing with the form class right here, with this element right here. And what we're gonna do with that one, let's say, we're gonna say that it's going to be at least 300 pixels wide. Okay, so let's say the minimum width will be 300 pixels like this. We're gonna give it, we don't want to give it an actual border, because that would, I mean, we want it to be a little bit more stylish. So instead of a border, we're gonna give it a box shadow. How about that? Box shadow. And this box shadow is going to be in the center. It's gonna have 10 pixels here and 0 pixels there. And it's going to be white, like that one. There you go. Let's add some padding to it. Let's say 2 REMs. There you go. It's starting to look a little bit better. And And now how about we add some border radius to it. So border radius, there you go, and we say 2 rem as well, and that's starting to look a little bit better. There you go. All right, now inside the form, well, maybe let's try to style a little bit the header. All right, so we're gonna say, since we're in SAS, we can say ampersand, which basically takes anything that's up here. So this form __ header basically means the same thing as this right here. Okay, so header like this, and then right here we say that we want to add some margin between these two. So let's say margin bottom, and we're going to add a margin of 2 rems like this. There you go. And then for the actual text of it, not that way, for the actual text of it, we're going to say that the font size, not like that, the font size is going to be 1.3 rem, and we're going to center it. Okay, so text align center like that. There you go, starting to look pretty good. So that's the header for now. Now after the header, let's try and edit a little bit of the body. Okay, remember the ampersand takes the value of the previous class, so this right here will be form __, and here we're going to target the body like this, and then ampersand again _ form, or page is it? What is it? We have the form right here, and we have the form body. Yeah, form body, and inside the body we have form page. Okay, so we're going to add, instead of form right here, we're going to add page like that. There you go. Now we have the page. Let's say that we want to add all right, let's add some flex direction. Let's say it's going to be column like this. The problem is that I don't think it's display flex yet, so let's just add display flex like this. There you go. Now it's starting to look a little bit better. There you go. All right, so right now we already have sort of our page right here, but let's how about we continue styling the input elements. All right, for the input elements, what we're going to do is, for the input like this, input, not like that, like this, for the input we're going to do margin bottom, and we're going to say it's going to be 0.5 rems like that. Looks pretty spacey, and it looks too close to the text, so I'm going to give it a padding. Okay, it's usually a good idea to give it, when you're dealing with buttons or input elements, to use, instead of rem as units, to use ems, because ems uses the actual size of the element, not of the root of your HTML. So here I'm going to say 0.5 em and 1 em for the sides. Okay, so this one's of course this one is vertical and this one is horizontal. And just to make it clear, ems means that the size is relative to the root, to the value of the element. And since the padding is to make the contents look good, it makes sense to use ems. But in general, you should use rems in most cases. So that's for the padding. Let's just add some radius as well. Border radius. We're gonna say 0.5 ems like that. There you go. And now let's get rid of that border. Let's say border none like that. And just as with this border right here, instead of adding a border, we're just going to add a box shadow. So box, not sizing, box shadow like that. And the box shadow is going to be 0, 0 again, 10 pixels, 0. And let's see how it looks with white. No, let's use a little bit darker one. Yeah, there you go. So that's starting to look pretty good. I suggest we start with the buttons right now. The buttons are also inside the page, so I'm going to add it not here, but here, if I'm not mistaken, like this. Buttons, like this. Is this how I named it? Buttons, let's see. Form buttons, and it's inside page. But we wanted to take form from form. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna put it here. So this way the ampersand means form. Okay, so there you have it. So the buttons are going to have display flex like this. We're just going to add some justify content. Instead of center, we're going to say stretch up, stretch like that, and so that they take the entire space. And we're going to set a gap for 0.5 rem. All right, this doesn't work yet because we haven't actually styled the buttons to take the entire space, so we're going to do that right now. Okay, the button.btn form like this, which is the class that we gave it right here, btn-form, like that. We're going to style it like this. We're going to say it's going to have a display block. There you go. The padding is going to be 0.5, just as with the input, we're going to be using EMs and like this. There you go, starting to look a little bit more spacey. The border, of course, we want no border at all. The color, we want the color of the text to be white, like this. The border radius, we also want it to be a little bit rounded, as we had before. Let's set it to 0.5 EMs as well. Remember, dealing with buttons, so we use EMs. For the background color, I'm going to use a darker shade of blue. So let's say background color, like this. And you know what? I'm going to add them up here as variables, my colors. Okay, so this one's going to be my primary color. I'm going to be, this right here is Sass variables. I know JavaScript has, CSS has native variables, but I'm just going to be using this just to be consistent with Sass. But yeah, usually it's, the closer you are to CSS, the better. And I'm going to add the darker color right here. So my darker color is going to be right here. This one's going to be secondary color, like that. There you go. And now this one right here is primary color, and this one right here is going to be the secondary color, like that. Let's see how that looks. Looking pretty good. All right, so let's continue with the button. Right now we already have the buttons, but for some reason they're not taking the entire space. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to add a width of, not like that, a width of 100%. And there you go. Now they're actually taking the entire available space. And since they're inside a flexbox and the justify content is set to stretch, they just take all the space available in that line, and they divide, and they have a 0.5 rem gap between them. If I remove this, the gap is removed. Okay, so there you have it. Let's just add a little bit of space over here between these two. So let's say margin top, it's going to be 0.5 rems, like that. And then let's, the cursor is not changing either, so let's add a cursor pointer too. Okay, cursor pointer, like this. There you go. So now we have a pointer, but when I click on it, it doesn't do anything yet, so we have to deal with that right now. The ampersand is also useful for this one, because as I told you before, this in Sass, this one takes the value for all of the parent element. So this right here is going to be a hover for the button form class. And in hover, what we're going to do is we're just going to add an opacity of 0.8. So right now, when I hover over it, you can see that it changes a little bit in color. Still, when I click it, nothing happens. I do want to add some sort of effect when I click on it. So I'm going to say active right here. Active like this. And I'm going to add some filter to it. Instead of adding a third color, which is going to be another shade of blue, I'm just going to add some contrast to it. That way I keep my color palette to the minimum. And I'm just add some contrast of 150%. Oops, like this. If I'm not mistaken, this should work. And now if I click on it, it also has a third shade of blue, which is pretty consistent with our palette, with our color palette, and it's looking pretty good already. Okay, so there you go. What else can we do right now? Let's add some of the other pages right here. So just to be sure I'm doing things correctly, let me check out this page, this side. All right, I forgot one thing in here, and it's the fact that actually our form page is going to be inside a form element like this, okay? Like that, so form action. We're not going to add an action because we're going to be using JavaScript with it, but let's just add a form to it, okay? And the form is going to have the value of, you know what? It's not actually a new form right here. It's just this one right here. That's not supposed to be a div. This one right here is supposed to be a form, like this. There you go. So now it's all inside a form. And now if I click a button, of course it reloads, because buttons inside forms, when you click them, automatically submit. So yeah, we will get rid of that in a moment when we add some JavaScript to it, okay? But for the moment, what I want to do is to add more form pages to it, okay? So let's do that now. Right here, you can see that we have one form page right here. I'm just going to copy it, and we're going to copy it 3 times like this. There you go. Now we have 3 pages, all right? And what we want to do with these 3 pages is actually make them a little bit different. So the first one, instead of having 2 buttons, we're just going to have one, which is going to be the next button. The second page obviously makes sense that it has the 2 buttons, previous and next. But the last one doesn't make sense to have a next button, so it's going to have a submit button. I'm going to remove the button next class because I'm going to be using that in JavaScript later to target all the next buttons. And right here, I'm actually going to add a type of submit, like this. That way, when I click on this one, you will know that when you click it, you actually want to submit the form. Okay. So there you go. So we have next, previous, and submit. There you go. But so far, all of the pages are showing at the same time, and we probably don't want that, right? So what do? What we're going to do is we're going to go back here to our styles, and we're going to go to our form page right here. And as you see, we had added a page display flex right here. But instead of this, what we're going to do is we're going to add the display none, so that by default, no pages are shown, okay? And we're going to add an active class to the first page right here, which is form page. The first page right here is going to have an active class. And also right here, we're going to say that whenever the page has an active class to it, we're going to say that its display is going to be flex, just as before. And just to make it clear that the active is supposed to override everything else, we're actually going to use the important attribute. Important. This is the actual right way to use important, not by just trying to correct what you miscoded before. When you have one class that has one particular characteristic, one particular attribute that you have to do, that it has to do, it's good to have the important tag over here. Okay, so there you go. Now we have the first page that's showing, because that's the only page that has the active class, and everything seems to be working correctly right now. So that looks pretty good. Okay, I guess we can now actually go into JavaScript. Oh no, you know what? I almost forgot the progress bar that we had right here. All right, so let's do the progress bar. To do that, we're going to add it to our header right here, and underneath the title, what we're going to do is pretty much, we're just going to add a new div that's going to have the class of progress bar. Okay, so it's going to be like this, progress bar, like that. And inside the progress bar, we're going to add 3 divs or spans or whatever you like. We're going to be editing them in a moment anyway, so I'm just going to add divs. And the divs are going to have the class of page step, like that. There you go. And inside it, you're going to have the number of the page, which is 1 for this one. And then for this one's going to be 2. And then for this one's going to be 3, like that. Okay, now let's just style them so that they look like this one's right here look. Okay, and to do that, we're going to go back to our styles up here. And we're going to create an entire new element, an entire new class right here. I mean, I really like using Sass because it allows you to actually create your elements that are self-contained, right? So right here you can see that all of the contents inside the form class right here, they're targeting the class. I mean, it's just one single CSS component. And then you have the buttons that work independently as well. And what we're going to do is we're going to add the progress bar right here as well. Okay, so let's say progress bar, like that. And inside the progress bar, we're gonna say that we're gonna have a display flex. First of all, we're gonna have a justify content of space between, like this. Let's see how that looks. There you go. So you can see that they're starting to be spaced between, of course. And now let's just add, let's just style the actual steps. Okay, there you go. Let's add the actual steps. So right here, I'm just going to add page step, like this. And let's just say that they're going to have a display block. Oops. I mean, divs already by default have a display block, but in case you were working with, I don't know, spans or any other HTML element, I just putting in there so you know that it's important that this element has a display block. We're going to say that the width it's going to have like this. The width, it's going to be 2 rems, and the height, it's going to be 2 rems as well. There you go. You know what? We're going to name it ems so that it's relative to the actual number that it's contained. And the border radius, border radius, it's going to be 50% because we want them to be circles. Okay. Then we have the margin top, margin top to actually separate them from the title. That is going to be 1.5 rems. Let's just see how that looks. There you have it. We already have a little bit more space between the title and the actual elements, and let's just start adding since we're not working with borders, because we don't like them for this project, we're working with box shadows instead. So let's add a box shadow right here, and the box shadow for this one is going to be again 0, 0. It's going to be a small one, 5 pixels, and we're going to say that it's going to be white, like that. There you go. Now the problem is that the actual contents of this div are not centered, and we want to center this in the middle of this part right here. So we're pretty simply just going to say display flex, display flex, justify content center and align item center, like that. So now we have our number centered at the center, and it's working pretty good, looking all right. And just one more thing. Remember that right here, the actual step that is being shown is colored in white. What we're going to do right here is we're going to do that. So if the class has another class of active, like this, we're going to say that the background color is going to be white, like that. Okay, you can also add an important element right here, just to be sure that it always overrides everything else. And right here, let's start with, by default, the page 1 being active. Okay, so let's say now this one's active and it already is illuminated in white. The problem is that now we don't see the actual text, so we're just going to change the color, and we're going to use the variable that we have just created, which is going to be primary color, like that. There you go. So now it's working correctly. Last but not least, for this design, what we're going to do is we're going to add the line that we have separating right here the two elements, between all of these elements, and we're going to say that every one of these elements is going to have an after pseudo element that's going to have a content of nothing, just to be able to actually show it. It's going to have a display block to actually be able to manipulate it, its height and its width. It's going to have a width of 100%. It's going to have a height of 100% as well. But the question right here is it's going to have 100% of what exactly? Okay, so it's going to have 100% of its container element, and its container element is going to be the page step right here. Because we're actually going to be saying that it's going to have a position absolute like this, absolute like that. Okay, and this one we're going to give it a position of relative, so that it's absolute relative to this one. Okay, so there you go. So now we can actually start working with the background color, just to actually see it a little bit better where it is right now. Color, let's say it's going to be red. So there you have it. I actually got it wrong. It's not supposed to be red. It's not supposed to be 100% the height. Let's say it's going to be 1 pixel, because we want it to be one line like that. Okay, and of course the background color, we don't want it to be red. We want it to be probably white like that. Let's see how that looks. All right, so we have this line right here, and we have this line right here. That's looking pretty good so far. The problem right now is that we want it to not be over the actual page step right here. We want it to be shifted to the right. So what we're going to do is we're going to transform it and translate it on the x-axis 150% to the right like that. So there you have it. Now we have it here and here. Now let's just add some pretty quick opacity of 0.3 to make it a little bit more slick. There you go. But we have this one right here that is hanging out, and we don't really want an extra one. We're just interested in having this two right here. So how do we target these two without targeting the third one? To do one is pretty easy, actually. We just add a not right here, and we're going to say that we want to take everything instead, apart from, that's what this not does. It takes everything except whatever you say inside the not right here. And we're going to say that we don't want the last child. There you go. So now you're targeting everything instead, apart from the last child, and you're adding a after pseudo element to it. And this is what you see right here. So now it's working correctly. We can save this, and you can see that if we click it, it reloads because we haven't added any JavaScript that is going to prevent the default behavior of this button. Okay, so let's create the default behavior of this button right now. And to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to my JavaScript right here. And I'm actually, as I told you before, I'm going to be working with classes, object-oriented programming in JavaScript. And we're not going to be working with like very sophisticated software design. But the idea is that you kind of have to have a grasp of how object-oriented programming works in JavaScript and how to organize this. Of course, there are easier ways to organize, but to build a multi-step form with just a few lines of JavaScript. But the idea is that you are going to learn how to use OOP, and also you're going to learn how to make this sustainable and maintainable in the long term. Because if you just add a few lines that just hide and show the next page, I mean, it's probably going to be all right for just one single form, but if later you want to add more steps to it, or you want to actually add an entire user interface around some multi-step form simulator or something like that, you're going to be much more comfortable working with a self-contained class that has everything in it, and you can just add some functions to it. Okay, so let's get right into the design. The class is going to be, we're just going to create a class called multi-step form like this, and we're just going to call it right after like this, new multi-step form like this. Okay, there you go. So you might remember, if you have taken software design or object-oriented programming courses, the idea behind this is that everything is, I mean, self-contained. So we're going to, and it also has to have one single function, okay? One single objective. So we're just going to be dealing with the front end, the UI part. If you actually wanted to add some other part, you would be able to add, you would have to add another class to it, okay? But so far, this is all. So the idea right here is we're going to add a constructor, first of all, constructor like this. And right here, we're just going to activate, get all the elements and enable the pages. There you go. That's pretty much what the constructor is going to do. And also, the rest of the software design is going to be pretty simple. We're going to have some properties. Some of the properties are going to be, of course, the form, this form, and we're going to, we're supposed to, it's going to have, the property of the actual form that it is. It's going to have a property that contains the pages. So here we have 3 pages that are, 2 of them are hidden. So they're going to be stored in this property right here. We're going to also have next buttons like this. And we're going to have all the previous buttons like this. Okay. So this is going to be an array or a node list. This one as well. And this one's going to be an array or a node list as well. And this is going to be an HTML element. Okay. And then in the end, we're just going to call the method that enables the pagination. There you go. And we're going to be building several methods for this one to work. Remember that when you use this, it basically means that you're accessing a property or a method of your class, okay? So right here, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new method called initialize buttons. That's going to be the one that actually initializes the pagination, okay? Initialize, we're just going to add some comments to it. Initialize pagination like this. We're also going to have a method that's called getCurrentPage like this. There you go. And this is going to return current active page. These are going to be the methods that we're going to be using inside this one right here. Okay. We're going to have another one that's called getMaxPage, which is going to return the maximum maximum number of pages in this multi-step form. And last but not least, we're going to add a method that's going to update the progress bar. Okay, update progress bar like this, progress bar like that. And this method right here, what it's going to do, it is basically going to just going to check in which page we are currently, and it's going to illuminate or just colorize the background of it. Okay, so update progress bar like this and colorize active step in progress bar. There you go. Oh, almost forgot, we're going to be using a couple more helpers, which are just going to be hide page, which is going to, it's pretty much just going to hide the page. Basically it's just going to remove the active class, okay? And we're just going to have show page, which is going to show the active class. Like this. show active class. There you go. So now that we have our architecture, I mean very simple architecture, we can actually start working with it. For the constructor, we're actually going to be passing in a parameter, an argument, which is going to be the form ID. Okay, form ID, so that it knows where to initialize the form. And we're going to set this one equal to document dot get element by ID. And right here we're just going to pass form ID. Okay, like that. And right here, this one right here now takes one argument, and we're going to pass the ID of the form. And the ID of the form is, if I'm not mistaken, I haven't actually created it, have I? Yeah, here it is. All right, multi-step form. There you go. So this is the one that we're going to be using. There you go, multi-step form. This is the ID, get element by ID, and now our form property is defined. And now from it, we can actually start taking the pages in it. Okay, so instead of calling this get query selector all from the document, now I can actually take it from the form, and it pretty much just kind of it serves as a container so that I don't accidentally target any other element. So this way I know that I'm only targeting the pages that are inside this form element that I created. That I targeted by its ID. Okay, so right here I'm going to say that I want all of the pages that have a class of form page like this. There you go. So now I have my array or node list of pages, and then we are going to do the same thing about the next button and about the previous buttons. Okay, so this form dot query selector all, and the class for the buttons is actually button, it's button, wait, what am I defining? Next buttons. So it's button next, like this. There you go. And it's actually supposed to be pretty much exactly the same thing, but button previous for previous buttons, button prev, like that. There you go. Now we have all of our properties defined already. And last but not least, we're supposed to initialize the buttons that we have right here. Okay, so there you go. Initialize the buttons. Let's start with that one. Okay, this is basically the main element, the main part of our. This is where the actual pagination is happening. So yeah, let's get to do that one. This one's going to take two arguments actually. We're going to take the next buttons, and we're going to take the previous buttons. Okay, like that. And right here we're going to have to pass them in, because here's where we're calling it, and here's where we're defining it. And to call it, we're going to call it from the next buttons right here. And second argument is the previous buttons. You know what? I'm actually going to change the order for this one. I'm going to pass the previous buttons first, and next I'm going to pass the next buttons. So first we pass the previous buttons like this, and then we pass the next buttons like that. There you go. So right here, what we're going to do is for each of the next buttons right here, for each, like that, for each of the next buttons right here, what we're going to do is we're going to add event listener that will basically just change the page to the next page. Okay, to change to next page. There you go. And we're going to do pretty much the same thing with the previous buttons like this. Previous buttons like this. And for each one of this, we're going to add an event listener to change to previous page like that. Okay. And basically pretty important as well, we're going to have to remember that up till now, if we click on the button, it actually reloads the page because it's a button inside a form element. And we don't want it to actually submit the page, the form. What we want it to do is to do what we tell it to do in our JavaScript. So first of all, the first thing that you have to do if you're dealing with something like this is you're going to have to pass in we're going to have, well, first of all, of course, the event listener. So button.add event listener, if I'm not mistaken. Button, for each button.add event listener, like this. And the event listener is we're going to listen to clicks, and the event is going to take actually the event parameter. And right here, we're just going to, first of all, let's just test that it's working, okay? So we're going to do prevent default, if I'm not mistaken, prevent default, so that it doesn't trigger the submit action. And then let's just, for testing, we're going to console log clicked on next. There you go. So let's see how that looks already. So I'm going to open up my console, I'm going to click on next, and I see that it's actually not working. So why is it not working? So we have a next buttons right here, and let's console log to see if my next buttons are actually being targeted. Console log these buttons. Let's see, are they being targeted? Up like this. Are they being targeted? They're actually not being targeted for some reason. So multi-step form. All right, so this line is never running for some reason. Because I named this wrong. It's not supposed to be constructor, but it's going to be constructor, like that. So now, if I reload this, let's see how that works. Gonna go console, and let's click on next and click the next. So this right here is working. My event listener for my next button is working. And pretty much what we're going to be doing right now is we're going to get, we're going to actually do all the logic for when we click on it, okay? So we already prevented a default. So as you can see, when I click on it, it doesn't reload. So that's pretty convenient. And right now, I'm just going to comment here the steps that I'm going to be doing for each of these buttons. So the first step is basically, just one second. So the first step is prevent default, of course, default. And then when you click, also you want to get the current page. And then you want to go to current page +1, of course. And you pretty much want to do the same thing for the previous button right here. So let's just add all the event listeners right here. There you go. So I just pretty much copied what's up here. So button add event listener click, and it's going to listen to a click. It's going to prevent the default for the previous buttons too. And instead of going to current page +1, it's going to go to current page -1, like that. There you go. So let's now just add get. Let's just get the current page. So we're just going to add a new variable that's going to store that one. Current page will be equal to whatever is returned by our function get current page, like that. There you go. So now what we have to do is we actually have to define this function, and let's see how we can get the current page. All right, so to get the current page, let's see what we can do. Get the current page. All right, so to get the current page, we're actually going to be adding some extra elements to our HTML template, okay? So first of all, for each page that we have right here, let me see, index.html, there you go. For each page that you have right here, here you have the pages. Where are the pages? Each page, there you have it. You're gonna have a data. No, you know what? It's going to be at the level of the multi-step form right here. And we're going to have a data attribute that's going to be current page, like that. And the default value is going to be 1, like this. There you go. So now this one is 1. And there you go. So now we can actually pretty much just return that value there. So get current page is going to be First of all, we're just going to get that value. So const current page is going to be equal to this form, because we're going to be targeting the form element that we just defined in the constructor, of course. And that form element is, as I showed you before, the one with the ID multi-step form. So we can just access this attribute right here. So we want data current page. So let's see how that looks. This form.dataset to actually access the data attributes. And we're going to say current page. And this one, as you can see, it has been shifted to camel case, even though it was written like this in HTML. And that's because JavaScript does not support dashes in the variable names. Okay, so there you go. Now that we have created that one, what we're going to do is basically we're just going to turn it into an actual number, because so far it's actually a string. So I mean, let me just show you how that looks like so far. Current page like this. Return the current page. So we return this one right here. So now this one right here should have the current page actually stored. So let's console log that one. Current page. Let's see. Now I'm just going to erase this right here, and I'm going to just add some more here. The current page is like this, and let's just click here. The current page is 1, of course, because the current page is 1. There you go. So now we have that function working correctly, but the problem is that this one, as you can see, it's a string. Okay, so let me show you that, and we're going to be doing some calculation with it. We're going to be doing more than, less than, etc. to actually find the actual page that we want, because we're working with numbers, so we want it to be a number. And how we do that? So let's see, the type of the variable is, so let's just take check the type of this one, right? So let's say type of, I believe that's the command, I'm not sure, or is that Python? I don't remember. Let's see. If I click next, oh yeah, it is actually type of, and I can see that the type of current page is string, and I don't want it to be a string. I want it to be a number. So how do I do that? So instead of actually returning the current page as is like that, we're going to convert this current page. Current page is going to be equal to current page, of course, but we're going to parse it in order for it to become an actual number. Okay, so we're going to parse end like that, parse end. And now this one right here, as you can see, the type of the current page, this one right here is supposed to be a number now. So if I click on next, oh yeah, because I set it as a constant. So you know what, I'm just going to return it here instead of actually trying to redefine a constant. There you go. So I'm going to return it as like that. There you go. So let's see what happens now. I'm going to explain what's happening with the yellow line over there in a moment. So if I click here, I can see that it's actually a number. But the problem is that, as you can see, I have a yellow line right here, and that's an error. And the error is basically telling me that parseInt, what it's doing is it's converting a string into an integer. But the problem is that I actually need to give it the base of that integer. So, it can be a hexadecimal number or a binary number, etc. So, I have to kind of tell it that I'm going to be working with a base 10 number, so that it doesn't kind of get confused. If my number starts with a 0, it might interpret it as not in base 10 but in base 6 or something like that. I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, if you're parsing integers and you want them to be regular integers, like base 10 from 1 to 10 and then 11, you're gonna have to add a 10 right here. So let's see how that looks now. If I click, one moment, I get number again, but I don't have this error anymore. So that's working correctly. All right. So now we have the current page, which is down right there. And now pretty much the next step right here is to, now once that we have the current page, what we want to do is we want to go to the next page. So let's use this new method that we're going to create. That's going to be called it's going to be called go to page, and it's going to be the current page plus 1, basically. There you go. And I already mentioned it, or didn't I? I actually didn't mention it, did I? Get max page. Yeah, sorry, I forgot that one. So actually we needed a method that's going to be go to page like this. And it's going to take, obviously, the page that you want to go to. There you go. Alright, so what we want to do right now is pretty much enable this function go to page. I'm going to change the name of this attribute right here. I'm going to name it target page, like that, so that we don't get it wrong a little bit later when dealing with other pages. Okay, so first of all, we're gonna want to make sure that the page that we're asking for exists. Okay, because since we're asking for go to page in this other method right here, go to page, what if for some reason we at some point will have one button that goes to page 10, but we only have 3 pages? So we need to be able to filter that. I mean, just some sort of error handling. So test that page exists. There you go. So if alright, first of all, we have to actually set the maximum page. So constant maximum page will be equal to get max page, like this, from this, and the actual maximum page we're gonna have to actually define it, because there we have it. So we have to actually have this function working in order to use that one. So basically all we're going to do right here is to go const max page will be equal, oh, this is not supposed to be uppercase, there you go. It's going to be equal to the form element, the data set from this one, and it's going to be max page like this, because remember that we declared that one over here, or didn't we? No, I actually think that we didn't. Yeah, no, I think that we didn't actually do that, so we should do that now. Data, we need to add a data attribute, and we're going to name it max page like this. And since we're dealing with 3 pages, we're gonna add here the number 3. I mean, if you were using some other language or some templating language, I don't know, maybe suppose you're using PHP for this one, right? You would probably pass in the the variable that you receive from the server right here, saying the total number of pages, so that you will be able to actually enable your form pagination. So there you have it. Here you have your maximum page, and then that's pretty much it, I think. And then you have to return it. You're just gonna do the same thing as we did with return current page. We're gonna return the max page like this, and we're gonna turn it into an integer, parse int, using parse int, and using base 10. So there you go. So now max page is supposed to be working right here, and we're going to that page. So what we're gonna want to do right now is, let's handle if the page exists. Okay, so first of all, if my target page is, let's say, if it's bigger than this, if it's bigger than max page, wait, did we actually set the max page? All right, we should probably set it up here, so that way it's easier. This max page equal this get max page. There you go. So that way we don't have to actually bother doing this right here. There you go. So if this max page is bigger than this max page like this, or if my target page is less than 1, I mean, if it goes to 0 for some reason or something, what we're going to want to do with that is we're going to console an error saying sorry, but the page was not found. Page not found, form page not found, so that we don't confuse that. I'm going to remove the brackets here just to make it a little bit more clean. All right. Since I only have one line, I can remove the brackets. I will not be able to do that if I had more than one line, because you're supposed to be able to do this in one single line like this, right? So if I just put it in a second line, it doesn't change anything. There you go. So now let's actually enable the go to page like this. And to enable that one, what we are going to do is we're going to actually first hide every single page, and then we're just going to show the page that we actually need to show. Okay, so let me just show it right here. So we're going to have to loop through all of our pages. So this pages, which is our property that we defined in our constructor, and we're gonna run a very quick for each method right here. And we're going to say that for each of these pages, what we're going to want to do is, first of all, we're going to hide it. Oh, sorry. We're going to hide it, hide page. And then if the page is the target page, what we're going to want to do is we're going to show the page. All right. And then what we're going to want to do also inside of this part is we're going to have to update the dataset. All right, update dataset, because remember that we're getting the dataset current page is pretty much acting as a state. What state would be in React, for example. Okay, so we will update the dataset, which would basically means that we're updating the current page of our form, so that when we run again the get current page, we're going to get the actual current page. Okay, so let me show you how that works. So first of all, we're going to hide this page, and this is going to be done pretty much just by using this hide page. Then we're gonna say hide this page like that. Okay. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to replace this one right here just to make it clear that this one right here is actually a number. Okay, so I'm going to say page number like that, because this one is an HTML element and this one is supposed to be a number. Of course, this would be way easier if we were using TypeScript, but since we're not using TypeScript for this tutorial, I'm just going to be over explicit with my variable names. So this is supposed to be a number. Remember that we're returning a %, and this one right here is actually a node list of elements. That's because it comes from my this pages right here that I declared up here. It's the list of all elements that have the form page class. And so I can actually, from this one, I can hide it using this method right here. And this method is very, very simple. What I'm going to do is just say this class list. Oh, sorry. This actually takes an attribute. So it takes page. And for this page, we're going to access its class list. And let's say that if it contains the class active, we are going to remove that class. Okay. So page.classlist.remove, remove active, like that. There you go. So let me just expand this a little bit. So page class list contains active. So everything that is before these two ampersands is going to be the condition. So if the page contains the class active, which means that if it's the page that's actually being shown, we're going to remove that class. So we're going to hide it. And let's just, once we're on it, let's just code the method for show page as well. So it's going to be actually pretty much the same thing, but it's going to be pretty much the opposite. So we're going to take this right here. So this also takes an attribute page. So we're going to access the classlet, and here, if it doesn't contain the class active, instead of removing it, we're going to add it. There you go. So now we have the hide and show page. And now we can actually use it inside our go to page method right here. Okay. So now we're using it, hide page. For each page, we're actually hiding the page. And then if the page is the actual page number, what we're going to do is we're going to say that we're going to show it. So first, let's get the page number of the current page. So let's say constant current page number, like that. And we're basically just going to do the same thing as we did in get page, but just for this particular page, we're going to do parse integer. And let's just get the let's just get it from the data set of this page. And let's parse it on a base of 10. Okay. Now here's a particular problem that we're encountering. I'm actually trying to access the data set for the page element, which is this element right here. So every single one of this form page, I'm trying to figure out which page they are. Okay, but so far in my HTML template, I don't actually have anything that tells me which page it is. I could try to calculate it, but I think it's just easier to just add the data set right here. So I'm going to say data page, and this one's going to be page number 1. Okay, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing for the second one, and the same thing for the third one. And this one's going to be page number 2, and this one's going to be page number 3. There you go. So now every single page has a dataset attribute with the page attribute and the value of that page. So let's get back here, and we're going to say page dataset page, and that's pretty much just going to return the page of that current page that we're looping through. So if that current page number is equal to the page number that we're targeting, we're going to show it. Okay, so let's say if the current page number equals the target page, the page number, like this, what we're going to do right here is just as before, ampersand, and that's this dot show page. Okay, I mean, as always, remember that we're using this because show page is a method from our class that we're currently in. So that's why we are able to use this to access this method right here. So there you go. So now that should show the page. Let's see what that does so far. Okay. So so far we're dealing with go to page, and we're have actually, yeah. All right. So let's see what that does. Now if I click on next right here, it doesn't do much. Oh yeah, it does. All right. No, it does actually. Good. Yeah, actually it does, but I don't see it because all of my pages look the same. So I'm going to change this a little bit, okay? Right here, we have the first page that has name, last mail, and email. Let's have the second page have an address. And let's say address 2. Let's just remove this third input. And for the last one, let's say password. Let's just say password and password 2 or whatever. I don't remember what I named it here. Address complement, and comments, other info, more info, etc. Yeah, I mean, the idea is just put whatever in here, the other info. There you go. I mean, this should do it. So now if I click on next, you should see that it's actually changing the page. But if I click again, it's not going to do anything, because remember that when I click, what is actually happening is that when it's actually happening is that I am preventing the default, and I'm getting the current page, and then I'm going to the current page plus 1. But the current page is always 1 because that has not been changed. Let me show you that. So when I click on, let me show you that right here. Is that working? Doesn't seem to be working for some reason. Yeah, there you go. 1 second. I don't know what's going on. Why is it not loading? Yeah, all right, whatever. So if I inspect this element right here, as you can see right here, the current page is 1 right here, which is the dataset element that we created, that we defined on this side right here. There you go. You know what? Let me put that on the bottom like this. No, this is not a React component. There you go. So here you have it. So we have the data current page data set that we have defined right here. That we have defined right here. There you go. And we actually want to update it every time we click, because when we click right now, what's going on here? There you go. Because when we click right now, it's actually changing the page, but this right here is all right. I don't know why it doesn't like being inspected. It doesn't change this. Okay, so let's just change that. I'm just going to take away the inspector because it's not helping at all. So there you go. What we're going to do is pretty much just update the current page data set every time we click on it, and we're going to do that here in Go to Page. So update dataset. Pretty much all that we're going to do is go to this form, take our form, then take the dataset, and then take the current page like this, and let's just set it to the target page. The page number that we're running with right now. All right, so there you have it, page number. So now every time that we click on this one, the data set from here, this data set right here is going to be updated. Okay, so let's see. And that way it's going to be able to actually run through all the pages. So if I click next, then I click next again, it's working. Because we're going to the next page. The previous button is not working yet because we haven't done anything with it, as you can see right here. So our go to page method is working so far, so we can just reuse it up here in the previous buttons. So we're just going to do pretty much the same thing right here. We're going to get the current page for the event listener when we click on the previous buttons, and then we're going to go to that page -1 instead of +1. Okay. So there you go. This part right here is supposed to be working correctly so far. I think all the pagination is pretty much done, if I'm not mistaken. Let's test it. So I'm going to go click on next, previous. Yeah, it's working correctly. I'm going to do something pretty quick now. I'm just going to show you something. I'm going to add some sort of animation to when you show up in the page, like right here. Remember in our demo, this thing. All right, awesome. All right, my demo stopped working for some reason. All right, but we want to actually have an animation when we click on next right here. So let's go with that right now. To do that, what we're gonna want to do is we're gonna want to go to styles right here, and inside page right here, let's just add an animation element right here, and we're going to say that the animation is going to be titled show up, like that. Show up. It's going to take how long? It's going to take 0.5 seconds, and let's say it's going to be ease in, like this. There you go. So show up. Now let's name it more appropriately. Let's say fade in, like that. And now we actually have to create our animation. So it's pretty much what we're going to do is we're just going to add it on JavaScript, on CSS. We're going to add keyframes right here, keyframes, and the keyframes animation is going to be, as we named it before, fade in. And we're going to say that the 0% is going to be the opacity at 0. And the 100% is going to be the opacity at 1. So that should do it. Since it's 0.5, it should be working correctly. So let's say next, previous. It's working pretty good so far. So there you go. That's already a working. Well, the submit button is still submitting. But yeah, I mean, the idea is that you can do anything you want with the submit button. So there you go. Last but not least, we need to do something with the progress bar, because so far, I mean, the progress bar is there, but it's not doing anything. So let's just track our changes with the progress bar. Okay. So just like to make sure everyone's on the same page, we have created our initialize button function right here. That pretty much what it does is it loops through all of our next buttons and our previous buttons, and it adds event listeners to them that make them go to the page, to the desired page. And then pretty much we have some helpers that just get the current page, get the maximum page of the form, go to the page, and we have a hide page helper and a show page helper. And then pretty much right now we're just going to update the progress bar whenever we click on one of those. So to do that, what we're going to do, the process is just get the progress bar steps first of all, and then we're going to get the current page. There you go. And then for each one of those, and then for each right here, for each step, what we're going to do is we're going to uncolor all of them, and then color until current step, like that, right? So let's do that. So let's get the progress bar steps first. So const all steps, we're going to name it in this variable, and it's going to take the form element like this, form, and let's just query select them all. And if I'm not mistaken, the class that I gave to every single of one of these page steps was page step, like that. Let me just check that that's true. Page step, yeah, there you go. All right, so that seems to be all right. And now we're supposed to find the current page as well. Get current page. There you go. This get current page, like that. That's the idea of having these methods that you can reuse. You can all just reuse them in other methods, and it's pretty convenient. Now for each one of those, what we're going to do is we are going to uncolor them, and we're going to color until the current step. Okay, so let's get to do that. So we're going to loop through all steps. Let's call this one steps, not all step. All steps, like that. And let's say that for each one of this, for each step, let's call it step, what we're going to do is pretty much we're going to say that the class list, if it contains active, it's going to remove active, and vice versa. If the step class list contains active, like that, what we're going to do, there you go. What we're going to do is pretty much just remove the active, because remember that we want to uncolor all of them, like this, and step that class list dot remove active, like that. There you go. So now we have uncolored all of them, and now what we're gonna want to do is pretty much color them all if they are if they're active. Okay, so right now we're supposed to get the step page for that one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, we're supposed to get the step for this one actually. So we have the steps. Let's see, we have the steps right here, and we actually suppose, yeah, we need to have some data set right here. Let's say data step step number. Let's say let's just call it number like that, and this one's going to be equal to 1. And we're going to do the same thing for the second one. There you go, like this. Oops, nope. Like that. This one's going to have a, I'm just adding these data sets to be able to actually access this through JavaScript so that it's easier. There you go. So now this right here, what we're going to do is we're going to get the page, the number of the current step. Okay, so let's get that one. Step number like this. And we're going to set it to the current step. We're going to access the data set, and we're going to access the property that we have just created, which is the number like this. Okay. There you go. And we're going since this returns a string, what we're going to do is we're going to parse it again, pass end again, base of 10 like this. There you go. And now finally, if the step page, the step number that we have just created is less or equal to current page, what we're going to do is we're going to colorize all of the, we're going to colorize all of the bubbles, these bubbles right here, if their step number is equal or less than the current page. Okay, so there you go. That way, if we're on page 2, it's going to colorize number 2 and number 1, for example. Or if we're on page number 3, it's going to colorize all of them. Okay, so let's do that right now. So step.classList. Remember that in order to colorize it, we're just adding the active class. And we're going to add active like this. Okay, so there you go. I mean, this function's supposed to be working. I mean, whenever we call it, it's supposed to verify which page we're in, and then uncolor all of the steps, and then color all up until the page that we're in. So what we're going to have to do right now is pretty much just call it at the end of our go to page method. So let's do that. So after we go to a certain page, we're going to update the progress bar to illustrate that page change. So let's do that. Let's just update progress bar like this, and right here we're going to say this update. We're just going to call this method that we created in a moment ago. Just save it, and let's see if this is working. Hopefully it's gonna work. Let's see. All right, so let's click on next, and all right, there's a problem going on. Let's see what the problem is. Previous. All right, so yeah, this thing is not working correctly. Let's see what's going on. Update progress bar we have it here. Let me just check right here. Had all step this form query select roll. We're gonna page step like that. Const current page. Supposed to get the current page. There you go. And then for all steps and each of this, if it contains the class active, there you go. And we're going to remove the class active, so that's okay. And then the const step number right here. Let's just create the step number, and we're just parsing the dataset number, which is, if I'm not mistaken, this one right here. How we save this? I think we have. All right. So this is 1, 2, 3. There you go. What else? If step number. Oh, I said plus. All right. Yeah, I meant less or equal to current page. There you go. So this is what was messing it all. There you go. So if the step number is less or equal to the current page, it's going to be illuminated. So let's just refresh, hit next, next, previous. So now it's working correctly. All right. So, all right. That's how you would over design a form. I mean, in case you actually think that this was over design, I actually totally agree with you. The thing is that this is not supposed to be like a practical example of what you would do in every single case when you had to do a multi-step form, okay? This is supposed to be kind of an exercise to show how to work with classes and how to work with internal methods and how to work with properties of your class and how to organize your code in classes so that it's containerized. But in any case, in some cases, actually, this kind of software design is actually very useful. All right, maybe not just for a very small form that you're just going to build once and then you're going to forget about it. But if you're actually building something that's big, for example, let's say that you're doing a page that has a multi-step form, and what you want to do is you have to do some calculations depending on what the user inputs on each of the form pages. So let's say, I don't know, a tax calculator. All right. So if the user inputs their income in the first page, and then they I don't know, just input their net worth in the second, etc. They're just input different things, and then in the end you're going to calculate things. This kind of design is actually very useful, because if it's a more sophisticated kind of form, it's going to allow you to actually get it maintained in the long term, and to actually be able to be reworked on by other developers in the future. So I hope you found this useful. I hope you liked it. And yeah, I'll put up a link to this form in the description. And if you like this, please do drop a like and subscribe. So, that's free for you and it helps a lot. So yeah, hope you liked it, and see you next time.